Jamaicans continue to resent the fact that the best beaches in the country are locked away from them, corralled by the operators of big, medium-sized and small hotels. How long or for how much longer must the masses accept this reality? And what must the government do to ensure that the sons and daughters of this land can luxuriate on the beaches of the kind they see in advertisements promoting Jamaica to the world? That's the issue for discussion. Lead story on this Friday here on CVM TV. Let's start the show. Good evening, my name is George Davis and this is Lead Story. Beach access gets the treatment in this, our final show for this week. I want to start the program by reminding you of something the Prime Minister said in his budget presentation in March, where he spoke to the issue of beach access, reflecting the government's sensitivity to this vexing issue among a large cross-section of people in the country. The Prime Minister said his government was doing something about it. This is what he said.
You know, Madam Speaker, I've listened very carefully to the debate around beach access. I've had to do it because the policy falls under the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And we have spent a lot of time going through the policy because the issues are fundamental. We are dealing with the rights of the people. We're dealing with people's prescriptive rights. We're dealing with property rights. We're dealing with people's right to enjoy their environment. And we have to go through all of them carefully. But one thing must be sure, we must be certain, and we must be unequivocal. Jamaicans are entitled to access their beaches. Absolutely. But one thing we know, Madam Speaker, there is one thing to speak about access.
We've never sold a beach.
There is another thing, Madam Speaker, to actually do it. Enable access. So we believe everybody must have access, but we go a step further. Madam Speaker, I am happy to announce that the government will be upgrading a number of beaches across the island for public access.
And perhaps the problematic part of the Prime Minister's statement was that last bit where he said upgrading public access, not increasing access. So we're going to come to that. Now, Jamaica is approximately 494 miles long, 30% of the coastline, of course, sandy. Then, the Beach Control Act, Jamaicans have no inherent rights to the beach. Jamaicans have no inherent rights to the beach and access to beach under the Beach Control Act. No person shall be deemed to have any rights in or over the foreshore of the island or the floor of the sea, save such as are derived from or acquired or preserved under or by virtue of this act, meaning the Beach Control Act of 1956. Well, to discuss this issue this evening, I've asked two gentlemen who sit at different ends of the spectrum. Dr. Devon Taylor is the president of the Jamaica Beach Birthright Environmental Movement, JABEM. He's on Zoom, and in studio with me I have the gentleman, Dr. Kerry Wallace. He's the executive director of the Tourism Enhancement Fund. We were set to be joined by Jamal Banton. Yes, he's on. Jamal is on. He's a coastal engineer, and he's with he leads the respected coastal engineering firm, Smith Warner International. Gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to Lead Story.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good.
Yeah, good to
And that's also just to test the audio. Let me start with Dr. Wallace in studio. Dr. Wallace, this issue continues to rankle with Jamaicans. Professor Carolyn Cooper has several columns writing about beach access. Dr. Taylor has been very strident in the year that JABEM has been formed, and there has also been some informed perspective on the issue advanced by Jamal Banton and his team. When can Jamaicans expect more access to better quality beaches in the country?
Right.
So the good news is that we at the TEF, we have embarked on beach development, public beach development, recognizing that there may be displacement happening in our tourism sector, and certainly in the past we've had that. But what we're doing now is that we're making sure that we develop enough public access beaches and developing them at the standards and levels where every Jamaican will be proud of them and proud to partake in the amenities of those beaches. And we have 13 beaches on our cards now.
30 or 13?
13 beaches are dotted across Jamaica. I mean, these are development programs that are huge budgets and so on, so it takes a while for us to get there. But just because we're doing 13 doesn't mean it's only 13 that we'll end up doing. In fact, there are 66 beaches that NEPA has presented to us that are available. We took the first 13 in terms of our capacity to develop. So we are at advanced stages of designs and all those. In fact, 4 are at the stage where we can begin works in this financial year. And so our idea is that if we're blessed as a country with a lot of beaches, and if we
That's why the public vex, because we're blessed with beaches and we can access the good ones.
And the whole idea is that if we can develop, there are varying stages. There are long beaches that have access to everyone. I mean, Negril Beach, for instance, is 7 miles, and everybody has access to Negril Beach, can walk up and down without uninhibited. There are some that are in a cove that the property may have only access to. But what we're trying to do is make sure Jamaicans are not short of beaches, not short of the beach experience, not short of being shown respect, to have boardwalks, to have restrooms, to have Wi-Fi, to have security, to have lifeguards, to have parking, and have the standards where they and their families can enjoy the amenities that we're blessed with.
And that's the point, because people go to the few public beaches that are of good standard and say it's like a caveman experience. Jamal Banton, I'm in Barbados, and I can walk onto the best beach in Barbados, even if that beach is aligned with one of the big hotels there. And I'm saying to myself, so why can't I do that in Jamaica? Is it that Jamaica is short of access points or just short of beaches overall? What's the perspective from Smith Warner?
Absolutely. So we've been fortunate enough to be working all throughout the Caribbean, and Barbados is one of those places. And wherever you go in Barbados, you're never more than 5 minutes away from a beach. And along the coastline of Barbados, there are specific windows that allow access to the public to the beach. So those are stipulated by government, and those easements have to be maintained. So if you're doing a new development in Barbados and you have a stretch of the shoreline, you do have to leave an access point for people to go to the beach. And ever since the 80s and 70s, Barbados have been very serious about beach access. And it would be criminal for anyone to come and say, I'm putting a development here and there's no beach access. So they've been very serious about it. Jamaicans, on the other hand, and us Jamaicans have not been that serious about it. We've allowed, in some cases, resorts to build groins or stone structures along beaches, and which have denied Jamaicans access to the beach. So we just haven't been as serious about it.
Hold the point, I have to take the break and come back. We'll pick up after the break, and of course, I'll introduce Dr. Devon Taylor to the discussion. We're talking beaches here. I have to use my words carefully. We're talking beaches here on Lead Story. Back with more after these.
TOK took a hiatus recently. Like a hiatus bus, you know, cut left way.
Don't want to age myself by saying Dial, but it's an insurance company.
Right next door to Home Electrics. So Mr. look one touch of class.
Exactly. No, I'm got touch of class. You know the thing. Yeah, man, legendary that one.
What age is the age as
40.
a young man?
From age 40.
Dark.
So I'm talking about
dark. Give me a next option, no man. So, me not have
a joke, man. These are the digits.
The Cut is brought to you by Flow and Guinness.
Back with us on Lead Story, we're talking beaches and Jamaicans' access to the best beaches. Jamaicans have long been very, very resentful of the fact that the beaches that they see on the postcards and in the advertisements advertising Jamaica, promoting Jamaica as a tourist destination, they have no access to those beaches, and they're wondering if they are lesser than in their own country. I asked Dr. Kerry Wallace, the Executive Director of the Tourism Enhancement Fund, to advance the arguments for the improvements. With me here in studio, Dr. Devon Taylor from JABIM, the Jamaica Beach Birthright Environmental Movement, is on Zoom, and also on Zoom is Jamel Banton from Smith Warner International. Dr. Taylor, you've in the past been very, very critical of the government's approach to improved and greater beach access for Jamaicans. You've said about the Prime Minister's beach access management policy, quote, he wants to, he's mixing up general rights and qualified rights, and what he's doing is deceptive and contradictory. Why such strong language?
Because the Jamaican government is complicit in the exclusion of Jamaicans from our beaches. Straight up. Listen, among the 13 independent Caribbean islands, Jamaica is the only island that have this policy in place. And the foundation of this policy stretched from a colonial era law, the Beach Control Act of 1956. You quoted a subsection of it earlier. That law does not give us no rights. When you look at all the policies across the Caribbean, all the beaches in the Caribbean are public except the Jamaica, right? And because our laws that are on our books, okay, which is colonial in its origin, all right? The entire Caribbean shares a plantation, coming from plantation, coming from slavery, right, into independence. We have kept that law on our books. That law have ingrained itself now in the economic policy of our tourism industry. And like, in slavery, there's 1% that controls the tourism economy. Is holding the government hostage. Government is playing along. The government is supporting these laws and excluding the Jamaican people.
So Dr. Taylor, hold on, Dr. Taylor.
1%?
What do I get to? Let me see if I understand you. Are you saying then that because of the antediluvian nature of the legislation, it's out of keeping with the modern realities? You're saying it's old, not fit for purpose anymore, antediluvian, that's what it means. You're saying that because this law is like that, the hotel developers have exploited this old, weak, unfit for purpose law, and the government has been going along not even realizing that they're being exploited. Is that what you're saying?
They realize that is the unjust thing, but they do realize it. It is a conscious act. It's not something that is unconscious. Listen, people across this country every day suffer from exclusion. Our government know it. It's not a maybe, it's not a if.
Yes.
It is the reality on the ground.
Yes.
This is our organization of 3 government entities as defendant in the courts when we are defending the rights of the Jamaican people to access their beaches. It is not coincidental. This is a purposeful mission.
Yes. Hear you on that. Dr. Wallace, you've heard.
Right. So the first thing is, I hear the comparison with other destinations, and most of them are much smaller than Jamaica. They don't have the abundance of beaches that we have. And he mentioned 1% of the beach ownership for tourism. Come on, tourism is Jamaica's #1 industry. Tourism provides the largest employment in the country. I mean, we have to consider development of the people. That same plantation, slavery thing, the best thing we can do for our people is give them a good quality of life. It may build out industries so that they can have employment, they can have entrepreneurship opportunities, they can live a great quality of life. And that's what we're doing. And we're building out 13 free public access beaches to lift the standards. I don't want my people to go to no beach where they have no bathrooms, go to any beach where they don't have any parking, no lifeguards, and no Wi-Fi. We're developing all of that for our people. So as far as I'm concerned, we are doing more for the liberation of our people than fighting this fight to now inhibit tourism.
I don't know if you gentlemen are music men, but as you said 13, in my mind was the Outcast song which says, when 16 is not enough. Is 13 enough? Is the point I hear the stakeholders are making.
Right.
Is 13 enough?
So what I'm saying here is that it's not like they'll be excluded from every other beach. And only 13 enough. I'm just saying we're upgrading 13 to the high standards.
To be completed by when, this process of
So we have 4 that the works will begin in this financial year, but the 13 will be phased in subsequent financial years until we get those on. In the meantime, we'll be adding more into the pipeline. So it will be a continuous
development. And you're saying that the baseline that those beaches should have, each beach should have good bathrooms, Wi-Fi, secure parking,
security, lifeguards, shops, restaurants, kiosks. Will it be an experience?
Amenities are plenty.
Precisely.
Right. Let me go to Jamel Banton. Jamel, the Barbados, and Dr. Wallace has a point. It's different to Jamaica. And I know that in the past you've written about the fact that Negril's 7-mile-long beach has many access points. So the complaint from people down that side is not as much as people who are on another part of the island. So the question then emerges.
Yes.
Is there enough of this kind of area developed by the government so that people can have the access points that our friends and compatriots in Negril enjoy?
So I would say I appreciate what the TF is about to do or has been doing with the few or 13 beaches, but I think there needs to be a lot more. Yes, Jamaica is very different geographically. So whereas you have long stretches of beaches in Barbados along the entire shoreline in Antigua, in say Cayman, and in Negril, you do have access points. Jamaica's geography doesn't allow for that because we have small coves and bays. So there's not this long stretch of beach where people could have access to. So in many cases, people can't go to the shoreline because the rocky shoreline or the beach is just in a cove and the owner has fenced off their property. So it is very different. So the government has to be deliberate about creating these beaches, new beaches, or enhancing some beach coves so that people can have access to them.
Yeah, Dr. Wallace, just before we go to the break. Just before we go to the break, Dr. Taylor made the point, he said that what exacerbates the problem is the fact that the government allows these hoteliers to build structures to block a space that would have been a natural access point to the beach. And that's why he said the government has been complicit in locking out Jamaicans. Well,
I'm aware that MEGJEC is looking at that amongst other archaic laws on our books and so on. But what we are doing at TEF in the interim is ensuring that because what we believe is that if all our people have access to a beach close to them and it's very well appointed and they're loving it, in fact, we hope that these beaches will also spawn tourism entrepreneurship, Airbnbs in a cluster around that beach and so on, and get more and more Jamaicans to get a piece of the tourism pie.
Yep. Are you able to luxuriate on any beach you want in Jamaica? Do you agree with, do you accept the status quo? How soon do you want it changed? Those are some of the things we hope to provoke by virtue of introducing this topic for you on this Friday evening. We take a break here and lead to a return with our final segment.
Has begun, I've traveled the seas, I've traveled the waters. Once I was weak, now I'm much stronger. I've worked in the sun, look what I've become. I've conquered the beast, now I'm much greater. I've learned from a failure. Dedication, discipline and drive. Seizing every moment that comes up in this life.
Back with us on Lead Story. The topic on this Friday is beach access. It's a hot one. We have with us Dr. Devon Taylor, president of the Jamaica Beach Birthright Environmental Movement, JABEM, formed in 2023. We have with us Jamel Banton. He's from Smith Warner International. He's the managing director. And we have the man who's the executive director of the Tourism Enhancement Fund, Dr. Kiri Wallace. Dr. Taylor, a lot of people support your group and the fact that you have dragged these 3 government agencies before the court, defending the rights of the people to access and enjoyment to the best beaches. You've won a lot of supporters for that. But I hear some people saying, does Dr. Taylor not know that the situation in places like Barbados, places like Antigua and Barbuda, and the culture is so different that you allow Jamaicans access to beaches, the best beaches, and pretty soon a man will set up a stall, he'll be selling spliff, he'll be jerking chicken, he'll be doing things like these. I've been around the Caribbean, thankfully, and I'm on a beach in Barbados, and I don't see the kind of vending and the kind of lawlessness and the disorder that attends to some of the better beaches in Jamaica that the public has access to. What do you say to someone who has that perspective?
Listen, that is a racist kind of a view to have about Jamaican. That is stereotyping the Jamaican people. You know, this is kind of like an anti-black racist kind of an argument to advance. Jamaicans are good people. We are good standing people, and we need to move off away of those prejudicial way of thinking. And I want to say to my colleague in the studio, listen, tourism is not going to save Jamaica. The kind of tourism that we're practicing right now, which is an extractive tourism, is 5 cents out of every dollar. That's
no, man, you have the numbers wrong.
You're going to get the right of response, Dr. Wallace. Hold on.
Because you spoke
Dr. Taylor, hold on. Remember, Dr. Taylor, hold on. Remember, I'm the referee. You're all my guests. You have protected time now. He'll have the right of response, so go ahead.
Yes, there's pollution, okay? We have seen, exclusion of our people. Tourism is actually inhibiting our access rights, and our fundamental rights must come before anything else. Now, I'm not anti-tourism. Yes. I born up in a center very close to the industry, but the kind of tourism that we're talking about, and Barbados, St. Kitts and Nevis, Grenada, they're not different from Jamaica. We're all the descendants of enslaved Africans living in a liberated, independent, island nation.
Hold it right there, Dr. Taylor.
To be afforded the same rights that these folks have. No conditional rights, but full rights to our environment.
Hold it right there, Dr. Wallace.
Right. So what I say to you, my brother, is that tourism is open to all of us. You are making it seem as if tourism is white and you're limiting access to black. Tourism is open to every Jamaican. You heard of Airbnb, you heard of social media, you heard of Instagram. We can all market to our guests now, and we can all provide tourism accommodations. In fact, last year alone, 31% of our arrivals stayed in non-hotel accommodations. The year before was 29%. So not only is tourism growing in Jamaica, but villas and Airbnbs and so on are growing faster than the other tourism.
But you see, Dr. Wallace?
And the visitors in those Airbnbs cannot access the beaches.
What are you talking about? Which country you live in? Of course they can access the beaches. Where? Of course they are going to multiple beaches. There are 66 beaches in Jamaica.
Hold on, Jamaica. Hold on, gentlemen, hold on. Don't talk over each other.
I promise you, every single one of them access beaches.
Yes. Dr. Taylor, your response.
No, I'm saying that there's many Airbnb members who contact Jabem about accessing the beaches. When you get off a plane in Montego Bay and you drive along the coastline, I want you to count to me how many access points you have. You have to reach to the beaches there. Yes. I used to have 3.89 miles of beach access in my county of State-Town. I have none. So don't sit there and tell me that. Yeah. We live a reality that may be different from yours. It's 2.84 miles of access that the Jamaican people have, as reported by NEPA, and there's 494 miles around the country.
Hold it right there, gentlemen. Here's the thing. I must go to Jamel Bantam before I go, because here's the thing, Jamel. Based on the Prime Minister's beach access management policy and what it purports to do and what Dr. Wallace says is being worked on right now, is that enough? And are we moving fast enough to increase access given the resources that we have playing with?
So we are not moving fast enough. I like where we're going, but we need to move faster. And we need to address some of those beaches that have gone. Elshire, for example, is a situation that we should be ashamed of. We've allowed it to go, and we're allowing other beaches to go that we need to pay attention to. And if we don't have as many beaches as you guys are saying, we don't compare to other nations when you compare our size to our population. So we don't have enough beaches, we don't have enough access points. So I am for tourism, I am for development, but we have to strike that balance, and we need to recognize what we don't have enough of, and we don't have enough beaches, and we need to protect the ones that we have.
Hear you on that. Gentlemen, that's all the time I have. There's just enough time for me to say that I am in line with those who want greater access to public beaches. I'm also in line with those who say, well, there is development taking place now to improve the conditions at the ones that are now currently accessible, and we go in phases, increasing access and increasing the quality of access, because access means nothing if it's like a caveman beach. I can't enjoy it with my family, I can't enjoy it by myself. So those have to improve. The TEF is working hard. People like Dr. Devon Taylor are very, very useful to the process because they are the ones advocating for things that you and I can't be bothered with. Beach access is a problem in Jamaica, has long been a problem in Jamaica. The government says it is sensitive to this need for greater access, and the Homeless Administration says it's doing something. I say that there's enough to be optimistic about where the future of beach access is concerned. And just to make a point, that is not just access to bathing beaches, but I've heard fishermen, fisherfolk, women fish as well, say that fishing beaches, there's also an issue where that is concerned given the scale of development on the coastline. But that's all the time we have. This is Lead Story. Thank you, Dr. Wallace.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Pleasure speaking to you, and thank you, Jamel Banton, for speaking as well from the Zoom platform. This has been Lead Story, Monday, 6:30 p.m. That's the time. We'll be back.
No more fear of missing out. CVM TV News is on YouTube. Get up-to-date news, sports, and business content at CVM TV News anytime, anywhere. Subscribe now to CVM TV News to see it happen.
TOK took a hiatus recently. Like a hiatus bus, you know, cut left way.
I don't want to age myself by saying Dial, but it's an insurance company.
Right next door to Home Electrics. So Mr. look one touch of class.
Exactly. No, I'm going to touch of class. You know the thing. Yeah, man, legendary that one. Yeah, man.